back to Read, Rant, and Review, Dual Reviewer Edition. And today I am here with my hubby. This is the hubby. Some of you may have seen him in videos before, but most of you probably didn't.
Hello, I'm Nadir.
Okay, we are here today to talk to you about Armada, which was written by the same fellow who wrote Ready Player One, which we both read, but we, Ashwat, no. So go check out my review of Ready Player One. And now we're going to review Armada, which we both just happened to read together, or rather listen to together, because we listened to the book on CD version, which is voiced by Wil Wheaton. We'll get to that a little bit later. That's awesome. Spoilers! There are going to be spoilers all up in this video. This video is going to make zero attempt to avoid spoilers, so if you cannot stand spoilers, off you get. Okay, so I have my notes, and these were notes written while I was actually listening, so they're very stream of consciousness, and they follow the plot of the story. So we're basically gonna just notes as we follow the plot of the story through. Essentially, my thoughts is what's gonna happen because I couldn't be arsed to organize them in some other way. So first off, my first observation, of course, while listening to this was that it was voiced by Wil Wheaton, King of the Nerds. He is awesome. What? Self-proclaimed? Whatever, we proclaimed him. He is proclaimed. And he is having a great time. Again, he also voiced Ready Player One, and he's doing this and just having a blast. So, I began keeping a running tally of all of the nerd references that I did not get, because there are thousands of nerd references in this book. Not as many as in Ready Player One, but there are still a lot. So maybe only hundreds, but thousands definitely in Ready Player One. And so my number 4 references that I did not get, let's see, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Just put my nerd cred out there. 9 references out of hundreds that I didn't get.
Yeah, but did you get all the music nerd references? Because they're not all nerd references. Some of them.
No,
are
I got the music. I got the music
references
references too, because I'm actually a little bit of a music snob as well. So just getting that out there. Do you think you got most of them?
Yes, I got most of them. I'm not good with music names and title names. So you give me a title of a song, I have no clue what it is. You play me a piece, I could recognize it. But
I will say, the music at the end of this book, he gives you the playlist, the Raid the Arcade playlist, much of which I'm already putting onto my MP3 player because I, forget that these songs exist, and then I'm like, oh yeah, I need to have these. Okay, early on, as we were getting to know the main character, and we're finding about his dad, and his dad was a giant nerd and has all of this nerd memorabilia left behind, and looking at his notebooks and his conspiracy theories, I was just like, this man is Cave Johnson. His father is Cave Johnson. I also will be bringing up probably throughout ways that this book is similar and different from Ready Player One. I feel like that's just going to be inevitable because it's the same author and it's kind of the same idea. It's sort of the revenge of the nerds, nerds will save the world kind of idea. So there are going to be a lot of comparisons between this and Ready Player One. The one big difference I noticed right away is that our main character in Armada is a lot more of a physical badass than Wade from Ready Player One, who was really kind of a pudgy nerd. And this one is a temperamental sort of character that gets into fights and stuff like that. So it's different. I don't know if it's necessarily better. I feel like it was almost put in there to be different from Ready Player One, so that we didn't have the exact same nerdy main character. I didn't find it terribly realistic that the mom never found love or remarried after her 19-year-old crush, that she married. She married her high school sweetheart. And then he died 2 years later, and she never fell in love again. She never remarried. She was always in love with him. And I thought maybe it was going to be because she knew, spoiler alert, that he was still alive, but she didn't. So I find it really hard to believe that she was so young when he died, and she never found anyone ever again. I don't know. I didn't buy it.
maybe she knew in her heart that he was still alive.
It could be a Disney movie like that.
She's a single mother with a kid, and she works all the time. And from the 2 lines we got in the book, it sounded like she looked for love in bars. She met a couple people, but in reality, with a kid, as a single parent, you don't have the opportunity to go out and meet a lot of people because you're working and you're parenting. So it's not unrealistic that she never had time to make a long-term successful relationship.
See, he's here for the dual opinions. We get the dueling opinions going on here. So.
I'll mostly agree with her, but I have to at least disagree here at the beginning to establish my cred that I will disagree with her, so it's more meaningful when I agree with her for the rest of the movie.
That's what he's doing. He's setting you up.
Film. Review.
I really hope the author of this book eventually does a D&D themed story. Because I want that so hard. Like, he's got computer games a lot, but he mentions D&D in, I believe, both of the books, and I really want him to have a D&D themed story. I don't know how that would go. I don't care. Ernest Cline, if you're out there listening to this, write me that, please.
It would go a lot like Darkness Rising, I think.
If any of you saw my Ready Player One review, you know that Ernest Cline has a serious hard-on for lists. He loves to list things, and it is true in this book too, but it mostly comes up at the beginning. He mellows out toward the end of the book and doesn't list everything all the time. But in the beginning, it was just like, there was a long-ass list, and I was like, I was listening to it, obviously, but I was like, how many pages long is this list? Mr. Cline, calm down. There's just little tiny nitpicks that I'm gonna have that I just feel like sharing with you guys that aren't like big story ruining things, but like stuff that made me go, huh? Like at one point, his alarm goes off, and he looks at his phone and he's like, I'm late for work. And I'm like, you have an alarm that goes off after you're late for work, you're already late for work. There are a lot more Star Trek references in this one than in Ready Player One, and this pleases me. I was a little bit disappointed to find out, because we find out later that, of course, that they're playing this video game. There's actually two games, Terra Firma and Armada. Terra Firma is like the ground defense force with like mechs and stuff like that, shooting aliens, and Armada is the outer space version. And they're like set in the same universe or whatever, and eventually we find out that it is training us to fight real aliens that are going to come and try and wipe us out. Because of this, and because we humans have known about this for a long time, and I say we humans, by that I mean one government agency full of humans, has known about this for a long time, and they have been like psychologically preparing us for this with all of our media and all of our video games.
Portions of our media and portions of our video.
Big portions, like Star Wars, and I was disappointed with the message that like Star Wars would not have been created if it hadn't been funded by this government agency. Like, we, as a culture, got our love of sci-fi from, or you know, science fantasy, from a government agency basically force-feeding it to us. I don't know, that bothered me, that message bothered me.
The message itself did not bother me, but the duality of it, that we do get a lot of our information and our opinions force-fed to us by the media, is not, I feel is a poignant and pertinent message still.
What if my grandmother, who was the one who introduced me to Star Trek, was training me to fight aliens one day?
That would be pretty badass.
Pretty badass. She was a badass lady, so who knows. One thing that bothered me about the story overall is that it felt really ficky, like fanficky in the way it was written. It felt very like everything that we as nerds dream of we were getting to have, you know, and it also reminded me very strongly of Ender's Game, so it almost seemed like kind of like a weird alternate universe fanfiction of Ender's Game.
I concur. There are definitely things that large government organizations that are bureaucratical and militaristic would not function this way. But it makes nerds happy, so they do it anyway.
Yeah, so this totally exists. And then at one point, a wild hot chick has appeared. She uses sexiness. It's super effective. This girl that our main character runs into, his romantic interest, is... Now, I said she was a stereotype, but I think Adam was more correct when he said she was a cliche of what gamer girls are supposed to be, because she's heavily tattooed, she's wearing combat boots and a tank top through which you can see her bra, she's drinking, she's, you know, like the gamer girl that we very rarely actually are. And she also, I didn't buy this at all, Adam maybe does, because he's a programmer, so maybe he knows about this shit, but she said all of the characters are gathered up and brought to like this secret bunker, and that's where he meets this hot girl, so they can be trained to fight space aliens. And she's like, oh, I was just snatched out of my cubicle at my programming job. But she's wearing combat boots and a tank top through which we're told you can see her bra. And I was like, you're wearing that in your cubicle job at work? I didn't buy it. Can you offer any insight as to whether you'd be allowed to wear that?
Most programming jobs are, I work in a professional business that does something else entirely, and I happen to code for them. Such as, my first job was, we sold random crap, basically, is what our company was. Company of, we sell random crap through mail order and internet globally. And so
Random Crap Inc.
So I wrote the code that assisted them in selling random crap. And in those business cultures, they have a standard business culture, and you're forced to adhere to it wherever you are. However, those tech companies that are focused as our company is we sell code to other companies who need it, they can be a little bit more loose and groovy and relaxed in their standards.
Start the debate in the comments. Would she be allowed to wear a see-through tank top and combat boots to work? She's also covered in tattoos. Like where I work, you have to cover your tattoos. They don't want to see that. They don't want to see tattoos. They don't want to see piercings. They're super picky. So it seemed odd to me that she could just have her tattoos showing, have her, bra showing, have whatever. In reality, let's be honest, it was more of this gamer's wet dream kind of thing where we've also got the super hot nerd girl for our main character to crush on. And of course, she's sassy, she's spunky, she's really smart, she knows how to, hack everything in seconds. So she's kind of like the perfect woman for him.
In her defense, they establish that the secret military organization has zero security on their internal systems. And
yeah.
This is why it is super easy.
They mentioned
for
that
her
more
to
than
hack.
once, that this government security is just like non-existent.
Admittedly, there's the assumption that in order to hack the system, you have to be on the system, and we wouldn't let anyone on the system who would hack it.
Except for all these random nerds that we picked up from everywhere. Right now we're going to talk about a plot hole. There are lots of plot holes in this book, but we find out later, we'll talk about the ending, but this is my stream of consciousness. We find out that the aliens have been building up this force on a moon of Jupiter? Europa? Jupiter?
Yes, Jupiter.
Building up this force on a moon of Jupiter, Europa. And I found it hard to believe that the aliens were doing this for 40 years, and we sent no nukes to just stop them. And it's kind of explained later in the book, but not to my satisfaction, that why didn't we just nuke the fuck out of them?
As much as she is ravaging nukes go, they were apparently, according to the backstory that is provided, the first thing we did when we found out there's intelligent life on this planet was try to melt a hole into the surface of Europa's ice and nuke them. And I'm sorry, I don't know in what world anyone thinks that's a good idea, because they had a singular probe from the 70s that had a nuke on it that, in the best case scenario, could maybe destroy a continent if they have some super magical, mythical nuclear power that they did not have in the 70s. And they're like, we're gonna take out an alien race on another planet with a nuke. Okay, that does not work. At most, you ravaged a continent. And everyone on the other continents are like, WTF, they just sent a giant frickin' nuke to us.
I mean, it is a moon, so it's smaller, but yeah, it's odd. It's odd. Okay, so I think I bring this question up several times. The aliens are actively coming to Earth right now. There is a countdown clock that everybody's got a special wrist thing with a countdown clock. Aliens are coming now. Why did we wait so long to activate the defense force that we had planned on taking out these aliens? The nerds are the ones who are going to be taking on the aliens using unmanned drones. They're going to be flying them with their Xbox controllers and trying to take out these aliens. And we did not activate these super nerds until the day before aliens were going to be arriving at the moon. Why did we wait so long? We could have trained them a little bit. Which brings up which like segues nicely into my next point, which is that none of them are trained soldiers, and so the commanding officers are surprised when these nerds don't follow orders and are all like mavericks and doing their own thing. They don't work well together as a unit, they don't listen to orders. These are just a bunch of douchebags that you pulled off of their mother's couches who are really good at video games.
I have to say, I think I agree with Julie. Because the book never gives you any clues as to what the aliens did to signal that they were ready for the massive invasion. But the book does clearly show that they have this great build-up, this new release for the game, new content where we are attacking the aliens' homeworld and we're gonna try to nuke the bastards into oblivion. And that was actually happening. And so they knew
Very Ender's Game at that point.
They knew this was their last chance to stop them before it attacked. How would they know that? Unless it was following the cyclical pattern that they said, where at this time they send everything all the time. If they didn't send everything every time, you would have no reason to think this is the end and we have to try and nuke them before this one starts.
At this point, I just want to point out that I had a theory. I had a lot of theories, but at this point I had the theory that the alien enemy was some type of AI that was man-created and was like testing us in some way, or we were testing it. I'm just gonna let that theory sit. I'll talk about that at the ending. At one point, our main character, to show what a free thinker he is, blatantly disobeys an order from his general, and an enemy drone is flying down into like a tube that leads to a hangar bay. And he has decided that he's going to follow it down there before it self-destructs and blow the whole thing. The general says that he needs to pull out and abort that, because he says that the defenses in the base will take care of it. And the kid doesn't believe him, and he tries to follow it in, and because of this, the enemy gets in and blows up the hangar. And I have twofold problems with this. My first problem being that the general gets really mad at him, yells at him, threatens to court-martial him because he did this, and I'm like, this guy has been a soldier for like 3 hours. My other problem with it was the logistical one. What happens when the enemy flies into their hangar is that a giant metal door closes and like just essentially just like crushes the enemy crashes into it, whatever. But because there's a friendly ship flying into there, it won't close, which is stupid. Because it is an unmanned drone. The door should just close and this disposable little drone should just fly into it and save all of the drones that are in the hangar. It made no sense.
One of my theories, and I thought this would be a pretty cool twist, is that his dad's alive, and his dad is responsible for this AI on the Europa. That there is an AI up there and it's building and expanding and conquering, and he was one of the first people sent up there to combat it, and he took control of it, and he's like, stupid conspiratorial government agencies at home, I'm in charge now, and I'm making these things, and I'm guiding this AI to take you out.
So that's his theory. Both of us, you'll notice, have AI as part of our theory. The other nerds that will be part of our main character's like group going to defend the moon, this group of like 8 people going to defend the moon. And all of them are, except for one of them, are pretty stereotypical nerd characters. And the one that I wanted but wasn't there was someone who is like abrasive online and is actually really pleasant and quiet in real life. Because that happens a lot. You get people who are like online are just giant assholes, but in real life are shy and quiet and even possibly nice. And we had an asshole, but he was an asshole at all times, not just online. So, and we had a Chinese guy, and we had, another gamer girl, and we had a gamer mom. And the gamer mom was the most original of the group, and I think she was my favorite one. The main character finds out that his dad's alive and doesn't immediately ask if the mom knew. He kind of forgets that he has a mother for a little while until eventually he's like, oh yeah, we should tell mom. I was like, she's been waiting for this guy loyally for years and years and years. And you don't even bother to ask if she knew that he was still alive. Ass. And everybody falls in love. Everybody gets a very hastily put together romance so they can bone real quick before the end of the world. Not a fan. I didn't understand why every single one of them had to be paired up.
4 individual characters that speak to the main character that he meets in person, that do not get hastily paired up. His dad gets unhastily repaired with his mom. The overall admiral person he meets is never officially paired up, but perhaps he has someone he's boning in the background.
He's never actually, we never see him in the vicinity of a girl, so maybe he would be if he did.
Oh, there's 5. I remembered one more. There's 2, his gamer buddy normal friends who are the super nerd stereotype, don't meet anyone new in the period of the course of the story, so they don't
could be in a relationship with each other, we don't know.
And then there is the bully that the main character habitually beats up doesn't get paired up.
Everyone else gets a fuck buddy.
Even if they're a super minor character that is like there for 2 chapters.
I noticed that Klein, the author of this book, really feels more like he's trying to write a movie than a book because the characters are not characterized very well and not very deep. And instead, he focuses a lot of time on the action scenes, the accompanying music for the action scenes, and descriptions of like things that we're seeing. And it always felt to me like he was trying to write a movie, not a book. And then I found out that he was a screenwriter, which makes all of the sense in the world. He's essentially somehow having more success writing books, so that's what he's doing. But I think what he really wants to be doing is writing movies, and so he's essentially doing that in book form.
This one is definitely more of a movie than a book. Makes an excellent movie. It was a fun book, but it's not an amazing book.
Also, I'd like to just point out, because I'm an author and I notice these things, his favorite words are torso and modular. For a little while, I was holding the slight theory that maybe these aliens were similar to Galaxy Quest aliens, where they looked at all of our media and were behaving accordingly. They realized that humans are terrified of aliens and decided to attack us. This was only a very loose theory, and I think it felt like the AI one was a better one, but it was another theory that I had. And the media, at least, when they finally bothered to tell people that aliens are right fucking here and we need to defend the planet, the people are shown to, rather than panic, they log on and try to save the world.
The thing that really bothered me about this, though, is that you're now motivating, like, casual gamers and, like, jelly bean arranging gamers to be like, I'm gonna log on and I'm going to get in a drone and I'm gonna fight the aliens.
I'm really wasting an expensive drone.
Yeah, you're gonna crash that drone so hard.
They're just like, I'm gonna fight the air. But why did they not, rather than count on all of these gamer nerds, train their already existing militaries of the world to be good gamers? Because then you have people who are already used to working together, having discipline, working as a unit, following orders.
I concur on this one. Even if you're like, well, we can't make the army start practicing this, because this isn't like they're taking trained fighter pilots to play. They're just taking people who play video games. And most of the army plays video games. Most of the Marine
He's a
Corps,
soldier.
They play video games all the time. So even if you're like worried that like if we start forcing them and training them to play the video game, they might wise on. The people that made Armada and Terraforma worked on the Army of One. What is that video game?
I don't remember.
The Army recruitment video game that they made like however many of. So it's like, oh look, we're working on the recruitment video game. Okay, not that big of a deal. Or 2, they could camouflage it slightly, like they did so many other things in this story, and they'd be like, look, Armada is doing a special we support the troops thing, where they're handing out games and consoles for the troops to play on, and they have a special prize pool that are only legitimate soldiers, actual armed force people are eligible for.
But it just bothered me that we are completely not using our armies at all. In fact, the book keeps telling you that whenever somebody brings up, well, couldn't we use the soldiers we already have? The book's like, no, we have to use these nerds. So eventually, the characters start dying in fairly large numbers. You know, there's only 8 main characters, but they start dying off. And unfortunately, I did not care about any of them because they were all made of cardboard. And they shout so many catchphrases and quotes as they die that I was laughing rather than crying at all of their deaths. It was at this point that I decided that this was all a big simulation by a computer game company that was trying to sell a really cool new game. Because I was like, well, they're killing these people off left and right, but I don't care about these people very much. So my theory was that they didn't actually die. It was all part of the simulation. And all of this was an illusion to sell a really big, cool new game. I found something in space named Icarus. It wasn't a ship, but it was still in space and named Icarus. I just felt like I need to point that out because for whatever reason, fiction feels a need to name things in space Icarus, and I don't understand.
Because he flew too close to the sun and died.
And then we get to the part of the book where I was laughing because it really was just a nerd's wet dream at this point. He calls up all of the famous scientists like in the world, Stephen Hawking, Neil deGrasse Tyson, just all of this council of famous scientists, and he just calls them up and is talking to them. And that feels the most fanfiction-y. That feels like we have reached nerd wet dream critical mass. So at this point I am out of notes because I didn't take any actual notes for the very ending because I didn't have my notebook where I was listening to it. But we can talk about the ending and our thoughts about the ending. I didn't necessarily have problems with the ending, but I didn't particularly like it either because it did turn out it was an AI and it was testing us, and all we had to do was destroy the icebreaker to prove that that some of us could think for ourselves and choose not to murder aliens. And then they allowed us, because one guy broke away and brought like 2 of his friends with him, they allowed us to be in their like super alien council of aliens.
The ending, the dramatic conclusion is the kid who is the 6th ranked overall, highest ranked civilian pilot gamer here for this, and he comes by himself with 2 extra drones as backup to take down the icebreaker. And I'm like, okay, yeah, he's the best they got on their team right now. And he's like, I'm just gonna pilot 3 ships by myself. I'm not gonna take number 7 and number 8, who are still out there and alive. I don't remember the ranking of the other civilians behind him, but Mom is still alive. She was in the top 10. And then there's the young black girl. She's still alive. She was in the top 10.
It just shows you how much these characters left an impression, is we just have to describe her as the young black girl.
There's 3 of them still alive in the top 10. I don't know, we could maybe take control of the other 2 ships and have 3 of us fight at the same time so we can take out the other pilot? Maybe? No, hero's journey one at a time. This makes... Okay.
Yeah, he has to fight alone because he's the hero. I don't know. The ending was...
Yeah.
Is my feeling on
It
the
felt
ending.
kind of like we're in the middle of an action scene, we're playing this hard rock music, we're like, yeah! And then suddenly, like, without a break, we're just, like, in some, like, classical music just started playing, or something. We're like, and then we're sitting on a quiet beach, and we're like, explosions and death, and then quiet beach.
Yeah, and, like, he gets to talk to this thing.
Jarring,
Yeah, where you suddenly find out that it was all just an AI all along. And he negotiates us to be part of this council. The aliens come, they cure everything, they cure cancer, and they rebuild our cities, and all is well. And at the very end of the book, the author tries to be like, oh, I know there's still all these giant glaring potholes, but our main character has noticed these plot holes too, so maybe that means it's not over. Ooh, which it might not be. Maybe he plans to write sequels, but right now it just seems like a really sneaky way of being like, yeah, there's a whole shit ton of plot holes in my book, but the main characters notice them too, so they're intentional. So yeah, that was Armada. It was fun, not as fun as Ready Player One. It was okay, but I would reread Ready Player One. I don't think I would reread Armada.
I concur. It was light and fluffy, and I was in the mood. I was looking for something nostalgia-esque and nerdy and video game-esque, and I'm like, you know what, I should reread Ready Player One. And then Julian's like, well, I've got Armada. So it scratched the itch I was looking for, but it's not, I would not recommend it to anyone who was like, I'm just looking for a good sci-fi book. Well, here's Armada. Is not something I would ever do.
It is for you if you are a gamer nerd. Anyway, so that was our thoughts on Armada. What did you think about Armada? Leave a comment below. Let us know. Would you like to see more videos with the both of us reviewing books? Probably not, because we talked forever. I will see you next time, and maybe he'll see you sometime. Later, guys. Bye.